We're going 3, 2, 1. Okay, everybody. Woo! We're back. We are back. This is so exciting. This is so exciting. Let me firstly make sure that this is actually recording at an appropriate volume. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think this will be a much better volume. Yes, I like these sound waves way better. Okay. So, firstly, I want to say that I missed you all very, very much. And I hadn't forgotten about you over these last few weeks. I've been very, very busy, but we're going to catch up on everything that's been happening. Firstly, let's get this out of the way. Let's address the elephant in the room. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day, everybody. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Robert Martin Antonio Bonilla, the famed outfielder and third baseman. Not a lot of people remember he played third base. He was in the outfield. He also played third base for the one and only Chicago White Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the New York Mets and the Orioles and the Marlins and the Dodgers and then the Mets again and then the Braves and then the Cardinals. Six-time All-Star, World Series champion, best known for one of the craziest contracts ever in history. Bobby Bonilla today, and he hasn't played a game since 2001. So keep that in mind. He's not played a game since 2001. He is getting paid just over $1 million on July 1st of every year, all the way through, I believe, 2035. He signed an enormous contract that was deferred. So after being traded to the Dodgers partway through the 98 season, he was basically the Mets wanted to release him at the end of the year. And he negotiated a settlement whereby the Mets would pay him $1.19 million on July 1st every year from 2011 through 2035. Today, Bobby Bonilla Day. He also is paid $500,000 by the Orioles every year from 04 to 2028 due to them having a deferred contract with him. But what a lot of people don't know is that Bobby Bonilla Day, so the person who owned the Mets was good friends with, what's his name? Bernie Madoff. Good friends with Bernie Madoff. And one of their owners, Fred Wilpon, that was his name. He accepted this Bobby Bonilla deal mostly because he was heavily invested in the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. And the 10% returns that he was getting, he thought he was getting, rather, outweighed the 8% interest the Mets would be paying on the initial $5.9 million contract that Bonilla had. So as a result, the payout was subject of an inquiry during the Madoff investigation, right? That came to light in 08, right? So they thought basically that they could take the $6 million that they owed to Bobby Bonilla and invest it with Bernie Madoff, make 8%, make 10%, pay Bonilla 8% of that every single year, and then pocket 2%. Now, it is a fine, sound financial plan. The only problem with this financial plan was that the centerpiece of it was Bernie Madoff, the Ponzi scheme guy. The what? Listen, you do not, do not get involved in Ponzi schemes. Now, here's the thing, and this, I believe, is the same for pyramid schemes. It's not a crime, and I'm not telling people to do anything. It's not a crime if it's not for money, right? It's not if you get locked in a nut-based pyramid scheme where you're trading nuts, that's not a pyramid scheme. It's not a pyramid scheme. There's no legal recourse. Just because you ended up with almost no nuts and all of the nuts trickled up to the people at the top and you ended up nutless does not mean that you can take them to court. Now, if those nuts had been quarters, now you have a case. Now you have a case. Even though per nut, the nut is probably more valuable than the quarter. How much is it per nut right now? This is a good thing to know. Before I speak out of turn, how much is a single nut? Because I know there's inflation and there's deflation and there's big, beautiful bills and all sorts of things happening. What is the cost of a nut? Single edible nut, I should say, not just any old nut. Let's see, $5.99. Maybe it's not. But what is the per nut cost? I guess it depends on the nut, but you're likely paying more, even though, you know. And speaking of pyramid schemes, right? One of the things I wanted to catch people up on, because not enough people are paying it. So everybody knows King Tut, which before I get into King Tut, his name is Tutankhamun, but when we abbreviate it, we call him Tut. Why don't we call him King Tut? For the rest of this conversation, I'm gonna call him King Tut because, fun fact, that's his name, and I'm not gonna disrespect him like that. All right, he's already gimpy. He's already a gimp. I'm not gonna. I know he's King Tut to a lot of you, but to me, he's King Tut, and he will always be King Tut, and that's how it is. So, what a lot of people don't know is there's a curse. Bum, bum, bum. Right? There's a curse. King Tut has a curse. King Tut. Curse victims. Okay. So, King Tut has a curse. And the curse is essentially you enter the tomb. You are not long for this world. A lot of bad mojo, a lot of bad voodoo follows you around, right? So, they find King Tut's tomb, the Tutankhamun, in the Tutankhamun. Sure. In 1992, right? It's found by a few people. And here's what happens. And you can tell me if you think this is a curse. Maybe you don't think this is a curse. Maybe you think it's coincidence. Maybe you're one of those people, those tinfoil hat people who think this is all one big coincidence, right? Tell it to George Herbert, the fifth Earl of Carnarvon, right? Who died in April of the following year. The financier of the tomb's excavation got blood poisoning from an infected mosquito bite while he was shaving. Now, was he in poor health prior to the expedition? Yeah. No, he wasn't doing well. He wasn't doing well. Is it weird that he got a cut shaving? Man shaved thousands of times. Gets a cut. A mosquito bite gets it infected, blood poisoning, dead. 5 months after the tomb opened. 5 months. 5 months. Simultaneously, at the exact same moment, Cairo has a power outage. And Herbert's dog died back in England. He's got a dog back in England. Dog died. This all happened at the exact same moment on April 5th, 1923. Right? So that's George Herbert. He's got a brother named Aubrey. Yeah, brother. Named Aubrey, who's a half brother, but brother from another father, I believe. He wasn't even at the excavation, right? He dies in September of 1923 because he got sepsis from dental surgery to take out not one of his teeth, but all of his teeth. So Aubrey's half brother, George, dies from an infected mosquito bite that leads to blood poisoning, right? And he's in mourning. And not only is he in mourning, he's got a surgery in September to get all of his teeth removed, every single tooth. All right, he's going to be toothless Aubrey, or as he will then pronounce it, Aubrey, because he won't be able to speak. Aubrey, Aubrey Headbutt. That's his new name, Aubrey Headbutt. Getting all of his teeth removed. And he's probably thinking to himself, like, I don't know if I can go on. Well, guess what? You're not, because you're going to get sepsis, right? Now, the reason he got all of his teeth removed, follow me here, He gets all of his teeth removed because he has a degenerative eye condition that's causing him to go blind, right? So naturally, what do you do if your eyesight is going away? It's a last ditch effort, but we're just going to take all your teeth out, and hopefully that fixes the problem. Hopefully that fixes the problem, right? Now, he was, I was about to say he was looking, but he wasn't going to be looking because he had degenerative eye disease. He was grasping, feeling around the ether at a future where he couldn't see and he was gumming everything. He was gumming all of his words. My dad said, can't fit that. That was going to be. So he got sepsis. Is that a curse or was that a blessing? I don't know. But it's a weird timing that it happened immediately after, right? Now that's the Herbert brothers. Now we get to Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, who dies the following year in January. September we lose Atri, and then January we lose Sir Archibald Douglas, who he's a radiologist who took a big X-ray of Tutankhamun's mummy, right? That big picture that was taken by Sir Archibald, right? Now he dies after an abominable surgery from metastatic skin cancer. Now the mainstream doctors at the time would tell you that it's likely linked from all the radiation exposure in his career. These are the same people telling you to take your teeth out because you're going blind. So can we trust that? I don't know. I don't know. Let's move on. Hugh Evelyn White dies same year, 1924. Same year. He assists with the excavation. Now, he dies, unfortunately, at his own hand. Very sad. He leaves a note in his own blood stating, I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear. What? You succumbed to a curse? What? Now, this is dramatic, right? But also, they lost a lot of excavation people to in similar ways. So now the people are like, well, this is weird because we've lost both Herbert brothers, Sir Archibald, and now Hugh's gone. Hugh's gone. And he says he has succumbed to a curse which forces him to disappear. Right? 1923, year before, we lost George, another financier who visits the tomb after its opening. He goes there, immediately gets a fever, poof, gone. George, gone. Now we're talking about the curse, right? Now we're talking about the curse. 1923, July. Prince Ali, worthy is he, Camille Fahim Bey, dies in July 1923. Prince of Egypt. Prince of Egypt. Now listen, as we all know, anyone who's read the Bible knows, Egyptian princes are very familiar with curses and plagues and other sort of things. And historically, they've not fared well. They've not fared well. Firstborns were lost, cattle, crops, not good. But he dies because he is shot by his wife in London. And, side note, she was acquitted. But he was shot by his wife, Margarite Alibete. I don't know how you say her name. It doesn't matter. She shot her husband to death. She shot the Prince of Egypt. I don't know which plague that was, but I'm assuming that was what God had next on store. If he still didn't, if, the Pharaoh still didn't let the Jews leave, that he was like, listen, I brought locusts. I've made the river run red with blood, the spirit of death. If you don't let them go, I'm just going to have your wife shoot you because this is nonsense. What is it going to take? Okay. Now, there's no clear evidence this is tied, and it's probably a domestic crime, not supernatural, but weird timing. Weird timing. Visits the tomb, and then the wife is another life. Sir Lee Stack died in 24. So all these people, by the way, have died in a 2-year span after the tomb was opened and visited, right? Lee Stack is the Governor General Heck of a title. Governor General, not General Governor, Governor General of Sudan. He is assassinated in Cairo by students. Again, people would have you believe it was political. People would have you believe that the Governor General is generally given to a person who is oppressing people. You know, you don't meet many freely elected, democratically nominated governor generals, but, you know, whatever you want to believe. Arthur Mace, he now we're talking he made it a little bit. 19, we're talking 1928. He was a member of the excavation time. He gets pleurisy. I don't know what that is. He gets pleurisy and pneumonia through what people are saying is arsenic poisoning, right? It's the curse. It's the curse. Same with Richard Bethel. Dies the next year. He's Carter's secretary, the guy, the original guy, right? Dies in bed in a Mayfair club. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the Copacabana. Dying in the Mayfair club in bed is very suspicious, and people believe he was smothered against his will. The suspicious nature of his death has fueled the curse even further, right? And this isn't even to get into James Breasted, the breasted man, Ingham, Carter's pet canary, who was eaten by a cobra on the day the tomb was opened. I mean, you know what? What are the odds you're going to lose your canary to a cobra? Talk about a canary in a coal mine. Let's start talking about the canary and the cobra. There was a curse afoot that was symbolic, and nobody paid any attention. And then we lost people to blood poisoning. There were people are getting smothered out here. People are getting their teeth removed and going septic because they're going blind. People are getting assassinated. People are losing to curses and leaving messages in blood. How can we ignore the curse? How can we ignore this curse? There's clearly a curse, right? So we do some investigating because that's what humans do. We do some investigating. And what do we find in the curse tomb of King Tut? We find a deadly fungus, Aspergillus flavus. No, that's not a Roman general. Aspergillus flavus, that's not a gladiator. It's a dang mushroom. It's a dang fungus. Flavus fungus. And King Tut, the last thing you want is a Tutan fungus. Okay? If ever in your life you have the potential to come in contact with a Tutan fungus, King Tut fungus, don't. My advice. So that what do? They take the Tut fungus, and this is a toxic fungus that causes a fatal lung infection, by the way, right? And they crystallized it or something. They crystallized it or something. And long story short, I guess it does actually treat leukemia. So that's a real curveball. That's really out of left field. And you got to feel for all these guys, but then you know all these guys who died of the curse. But then you think about it: did any of them die of leukemia? One had metastatic skin cancer. Maybe he didn't get enough tooth fungus. You know, that's a real conversation that needs to be had by historians and scientists and doctors. So, you know, and I'm not saying go out and get the tooth fungus. Obviously, they got to do some stuff to the tooth fungus to make it, you know, but like, what an unbelievable break. And and like I said, you feel for the people who they you know they got the curse. They got the bad end of the stick. And you know, they made some great discovery. You know, King Tootie, he's an interesting one because he's not actually thought of by Egyptians as like a really cool pharaoh. You know what I mean? Like he's got that. We've all seen him. He's got a kind of a. He's a gimp. He's a gimp. He's got a club foot. And a lot of these pyramids you go in and you see like they paint people with 2 feet, 2 left feet. Well, turns out for King Tut, that's just an accurate depiction. It's not even like we need to give him extra assistance to get to the afterlife. Because I believe that was the purpose of the 2 left feet was help him to get to the if you had a right foot, good luck. Good luck getting to heaven. It's not gonna happen. You need 2 left feet. I mean, they had these half human, half animals up there. These guys got beaks. They got big old beaks. And they're judging us for having a right foot. It's not. It's not. It's not fair. But it is what it is, you know? And so they would draw people because, as everybody knows, the gods, like the Egyptian gods, they don't actually know what you look like. All they get is like that picture you draw on the wall, and they're like, "Yeah, this is what the person looked like," and blah, blah, blah. And they look down, they go, "Oh, we go 2 left feet, that's fine," and then he can come in. It's sort of like the bouncer at the club, you know what I mean? And these photos are basically their fake IDs, where they're like, "Hey, make sure I got 2 left feet, otherwise, make sure I'm 21, make I'm not getting in, make sure I got 2 left feet, so I can be in paradise." The last thing you want is for some idiot Egyptian moron who doesn't get the memo and paints you with a right foot because he thinks he's going for photorealism. Dingus. I just got turned away at Heaven's Gates because of you. They, what are you doing? I digress. I just think it's crazy that these beaked bobos are judging us for having a right foot, but this might not even be what it's about. I should actually look into that. Why did ancient Egyptians, we should specify, because I don't believe recent Egyptians have done this. Why did ancient Egyptians paint people with 2 left feet? 2 left feet. It almost kind of sounds like an insult, like that 2 left-footed person. I don't know. Yeah, it means someone's clumsy. Style and symbolism. Every part was shown from the most recognizable angle. Are left feet more recognizable? I don't even know. I always assumed feet were symmetrical. I would, if I saw someone's right foot, I feel like I could identify them. Unless it was maybe King Toot, actually, because he did have the club foot. I don't even know. Was his clubby foot on the left side? I think it would be his right, my left. Maybe, maybe. Toes visible. Dirty dogs. Oh my gosh. These perverts. Toes visible, 2 left feet, both in profile, pointing in same direction. Because the big toe always appeared on the same size, both feet looked like the left feet to modern eyes, but for Egyptians it was about anatomy. It was about showing motion. Okay. Conveying social status, order, clarity, balance, posture. Ancient Egyptian artists didn't use perspective or shading to create depth. Instead, they followed strict artistic conventions, meaning the human body was more a diagram than a portrait. And they think these guys built the pyramids. And they think these guys built the pyramids. These dimbos. They didn't even know shading. I learned shading in third grade. I learned shading in third grade. They have cave paintings in England from when people were hairy and naked and swinging clubs and throwing rocks at each other that have shading. And they're telling me these guys built the pyramids with advanced math and you can't shade a photo? Get out of here. Get out of here. All right, stop tooting my fungus. Okay? I don't know if that fungus that's in King Tut's tomb is a rare fungus or a common fungus. It's definitely a Tutankhamun fungus, but it's, you know, it might cure leukemia. So that's that. Also, wild that we figured that out. Shout out. No, actually, I don't want to shout this guy or girl out. I would like to call into question the human scientist who was studying the king's curse and was like, what if we like synthesize this and we give this to people with leukemia? I think that this person was trying to kill people with cancer. What a crazy move. Like, if you're battling leukemia, the last thing you need is the king's curse. The last thing you need is the king's curse. I'm battling cancer. You're giving me an ancient Egyptian curse of the pharaoh, and I'm gonna have to fight this thing like I'm the dude from the whale. I forget his name, the fat guy who, but he was in the Mummy, whatever, uh, whatever his name was. Laura Croft is not him, but I'm gonna say that I have to fight now. I got leukemia, and now I got to fight off the King's Curse like I'm Laura Croft. There we go. That was a better joke. And against all odds, they got better. So how about that? A lot of crazy science going on. A lot of crazy science going on. And they're gonna have you believe that these people built the pyramids. I don't know, folks. I don't know. Well, you know what I do know? Speaking of, there's a lot of controversy going on. I don't know if people are following the James Webb Space Telescope. I'm sorry for the whiplash from this segue, but a new paper has come out that shows that the cosmic microwave background radiation, the CMBR, which is the foundation of a lot of theories in cosmology and physics, I guess can potentially be explained by energy of recently discovered early mature galaxies. Early mature galaxies. Now, if you're a galaxy file, a Peter Galaxy file, stop listening. All right? We're going to have a real conversation about early mature galaxies. I don't want any of your nonsense in here. You can leave. Looking at you, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You see how he gets so excited to talk about planets. He gets so pompous. He asks stupid questions. Like, if there's a 1% difference between us and gorilla DNA, imagine someone with 1% DNA better than us. Okay, Neil, they're not going to be aliens. Why would they have the same DNA as us? Is there something you know? Do you want to share something? I didn't think so. A new paper on cosmic microwave background radiation. Now, this is different. It's different but similar from what you can use to make minute rice. Energy of recently discovered early mature galaxies, which are massive galaxies that the James Webb Space Telescope discovered, which seem to crush the existing models of galaxy formation because they formed much earlier than astrophysicists thought possible. Now, these early mature galaxies turn out to account for a large portion of energy density from the cosmic microwave background radiation, which was believed to be a snapshot of the first light emitted after the Big Bang when the universe was 379,000 years old or so. Ish, right? Now, the variations in the background radiation were believed to be relics of quantum fluctuations in the dense plasma of the Big Bang. I know, stay with me. If these new findings are accepted, and there's really no reason not to accept them, then all of the following findings of cosmology are thrown into question. These are all things that are based on the previous theory that this calls into question. Planck and WMAP findings. Foundational assumptions invalidated. Gravitational lensing of cosmic microwave background radiation loses standard interpretation. Matter radiation equality timing has to be completely reevaluated. Completely reevaluated. Cosmic curvature. The flatness inference is challenged. Maybe she's thicker than we thought. Maybe she's not flat. Maybe you're staring at it from the front. Maybe if you got around to a side profile, maybe if the Egyptians were painting her, she wouldn't seem so flat. She'd have some of those cosmic curves, baby. Baryon acoustic oscillations have to be decoupled from cosmic microwave background radiation. The polarization of that radiation needs complete reassessment. Acoustic peaks, no longer evidence of primordial sound waves. Tell that to the people on Instagram that you see up in trees pretending to be gorillas going, and they're like communing with the spirits. Idiots. Integrated Sachs-Wolf effect. Invalidated. Cosmic distance ladder. The calibration may be flawed. Maybe the ladder's bigger or smaller than we thought. The re-ionization epoch. The timing and cause questionable. The Hubble constant, large-scale structure formation, primordial nucleosynthesis, the age of the universe, dark matter, energy, density, dark energy, the Sith, CMB power spectrums, the model, the cosmic inflation has to be completely reassessed. What does this mean for the U.S. economy? I don't know. But most foundationally, this completely undermines the Big Bang Theory. So this is a big discovery, potentially, and it seems like it's going to hold up. Now, it has to be revalidated. It is a 2024 paper by Planck Collaboration et al., right? And it goes against studies done that um, may be biased by pre-existing models. And I'm not going to call out certain people because that's not what this podcast is about. I did call out the Egyptians, but that's fine. They're gone. They're left foot shoveling. They're walking in circles up and wherever they are now with beaks and just. Now, what do we do about this? Well, firstly, we do a wellness check on Neil deGrasse Tyson. Firstly, we do a wellness check. Does this invalidate the Big Bang Theory, the TV show? Man, they're going to seem like morons. Not going to seem so smart. Does it undermine some of the comedy? I don't think so. I think the comedy stands up. I think the comedy will be fine. So that was a big breakthrough. That was a big breakthrough. Big breakthrough in the health space. Not soon enough. Where was this in 1922, 19, wherever, when those guys were. A 2-gram antiviral gum that was discovered in a study called Debulking Influenza and Herpes Simplex virus strains by a wide spectrum antiviral protein formulated in clinical grade chewing gum. So this was an article with bean gum. Now, is bean gum inappropriate for me to be saying? Potentially. Potentially it is. I don't know. Now, so this 2-gram antiviral gum neutralized multiple strains of influenza and herpes in under 15 minutes. The active compound is FRIL, F-R-I-L, which stands for photonin binding ricin B like lectin. All you need to know is that this binds to and disables viruses. It's formulated with lab bean gum and remains shelf stable for over 2 years at room temperature. So it has a lot of it's not a product that's available right now, so don't rush to Amazon to try to buy it. It has broad spectrum potential, and we've seen nasal sprays used against COVID and the flu. They're very effective in preventing replication of COVID during that initial phase. Maybe antiviral gum is next, and it could be a safer solution to doing tons of mouth washing. I think that was one thing that people were doing during uh, during COVID. They were doing the mouthwash plus the nasal spray, this gum could become a broad spectrum solution that you could couple with hot baths. There was a recent study that came out that showed that they looked at red light, no, infrared saunas versus regular saunas versus hot baths, and they found that hot baths actually outperformed both of them. Now, what's notable about this study is that the the study was based on protocols of what quote unquote people actually do. So the saunas were based on sauna temperatures that most people actually end up using, not what they say they're using, but what they often end up using. And same with infrared. And like time wise, like people say, like, oh, I'm gonna do 20 minutes and they end up doing like 10. So it's based on that. The hot tub is essentially a hot tub. The hot bath was 104.9 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very hot. And they were in it for about 45 minutes versus the sauna was like 190, 179, 176. What was interesting about that is they found that the sauna temperature that people thought they were getting to was actually a lot lower by like 20 degrees and much less lower with infrared saunas. Now, I've used the infrared saunas, um, and they definitely don't get super hot in my experience. They can be very relaxing, but they don't get super hot. And what this study found was that the hot bath, one thing it actually did was it got a very robust immune system response that lasted about 2 days, 24 to 48 hours, that activated natural killer cells and T cells. It had good um, interleukin, I believe it was interleukin 6 activation, which can help with inflammation. There's a lot of really good immune system style activations that come out of the hot baths. So the reason this seems to be is because with a sauna, obviously you're in hot air and you're sweating, but when you're in hot water, the conductivity of the heat with your core body temperature is just a lot better. So you get a much more robust response. Now, 45 minutes is a long time to be in there versus 10 minutes in the sauna, but you get a very robust response and you get immune system activation. Now they need to follow it up and see, like, if you do the sauna for 20 minutes, how does it line up? If you do the infrared sauna for 20 minutes, how does it line up? If you do hotter or whatever, how does it line up? What is the minimum bath temperature to get an immune response? Like they got to do a lot of this stuff. But it seems that come flu season, come the winter, it could really benefit you if you're looking to avoid getting sick. Not, on top of taking, appropriate supplements and that sort of thing. Vitamin D, vitamin K, zinc, all that sort of thing. Taking vitamin C occasionally, liposomal vitamin C. That taking a hot bath every few days could be really, really profound for you. On top of maybe like an NAC supplement, this could really be a very effective anti viral infection protocol. Another thing that I saw that was notable is that it seems that when you get cold exposure, your body is able to start to make vitamin D on its own. It had something to do, and I'm gonna screw this up to high heavens, but it seems something that the cold exposure allowed for some sort of light exposure in the mitochondria, which then stimulated vitamin D production, which is very interesting because it is light that in the summer stimulates vitamin D production. And it would make sense that in cold places where there's not a lot of light, there is like a secondary mechanism that can help you get by with some vitamin D. And it seems like the cold exposure can't do that. Now, how much you need, at what temperature you need, I don't know. You're going to have to Google that on your own. But that does seem, actually, I can just Google it. I'll Google it. I'll be the dude. Cold exposure, light, mitochondria, vitamin D production. I'll get you some answers. I'm on the case. Cold exposure, such as through cold showers or ice bath, activates thermogenesis, particularly in brown adipose tissue. This, which is apparently an acronym of BAT. So next time you hear about the Batman, that might not be the superhero, that might be the brown adipose tissue man, and that's not a guy that you want to meet. Trust me. This stimulates mitochondria to produce heat via uncoupling protein 1, UCP1, increasing energy expenditure. Studies suggest cold exposure can enhance mitochondrial biogenesis, new mitochondrial formation, in Batman, and skeletal muscle, improving metabolic efficiency. UVB light and vitamin D taken because vitamin D synthesis in the skin requires UVB light to convert 7 dehydrocholesterol into pre-vitamin D, which then becomes vitamin D3. Sun exposure, particularly on midday, is the primary natural source. Cold exposure itself doesn't directly trigger vitamin D production as it requires. So this isn't up to date on the. Let me see if I can find it. This is a very new study. Cold exposure. This is a very new study. Okay, so mitochondria activated by cold. This is a new study as of a couple weeks ago. Will produce light inside the body. When the biophoton UV light reaches the right cholesterol molecule, it initiates production of vitamin D without sunlight. So that's what I'm getting at, right? Okay, so there's not much more information there. But that's pretty cool. That's a pretty sick thing to be able to, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that you would have the ability to get vitamin D somewhere if you were in cold areas, that there would be an adaptation for that. The last study that I've seen that comes out was done by Kristi Starashuk. Starashuk. She just put this out 3 days ago, so she's super excited. But what she found was that she did a meta-analysis of zone 2 cardio in sport, and it got published in Sports Medicine, which is a great journal. And she did a meta-analysis of zone 2 training for improving mitochondrial capacity and respiratory fitness, and sort of the hype. Everyone's been hearing about zone 2 training and all this sort of thing. This was co-authored by expert Brendan Gerd, whose prior research on exercise physiology is quite extensive. And what they found is challenging the social media driven popularity of zone 2 training. That it suggests that evidence is actually inconclusive, and that the 2024 study, that the INS-CYD study, that found limited data proving that it is the most effective method for enhancing mitochondrial function compared to other intensities, seems to be corroborated. So it seems that it's interesting it's coming out now because the Tour de France starts on July 5th, where Zone 2 primarily seems to have come out of promotion by elite cyclists, especially that, what's his name, Pogacar, his coach, um, was a big person on it. I'm trying to think. Like, a lot of people talk about it. Huberman talks about it. Atia talks about it. Rhonda Patrick talks about it. And it seems that there's maybe not, and now if you want to look up the study, it's called Much to Do About Zone 2. Heck of a study name. Firstly, great study name. Okay. So it seems that the current evidence does not, and this is what the analysis finds, and I'm just reading from the papers. Current evidence does not support zone 2 training as the most effective intensity for these outcomes in the general population. Substantial evidence supports high intensity HIIT training as more effective alternative. When comparing Zone 2 with higher intensity trainings, the improvements in cardiorespiratory fitness were found to be similar in untrained populations with no significant advantage to Zone 2. The popularity of Zone 2 training partly stems from observational data on elite endurance athletes who perform large volumes of Zone 2 training and naturally possess high mitochondrial and fatty acid oxidative capacity. However, this review is arguing that it does not translate to optimal recommendations for the general public. So basically, what they're saying is that if you're an elite athlete, especially a cyclist, who have some of the highest VO2 maxes of anybody, up there with biathletes, that and now for some listeners, a biathlete is not an athlete who likes men and women athletes or competes against men and women athletes. A biathlete is someone who competes in the biathlon, which does have men and women who compete in it, but in separate categories, that has shooting and skiing. Okay. Now, biathletes and cyclists, they have some of the highest VO2 maxes of anybody. And when you have such efficiency, you have to work extremely hard to get into high intensity workout zones. Like to get your heart to be beating that fast, you have to really be pushing it. And at a certain point, it's hard to push it that hard. Like they just end up in zone two, even though they're working hard, because their hearts are so efficient and their cardiovascular systems are so good. And so, what is optimal for them might not be optimal for the general population that can more easily push themselves into zone five or zone three or zone four when they're doing a workout. Now, we know the effectiveness of like the Norwegian 4x4, which is 4 minutes, 90 to 95% intensity, super high, super hard, followed by 4 minutes, very low intensity, cycled 4 times. That's super effective. And that's HIIT. That is a HIIT workout. That is a high intensity workout. And that builds your VO2 max super well. It's a great workout to use if you're trying to build cardiovascular fitness. So, if you're the average Joe, maybe pump the brakes on the zone two a little bit. I think it's still probably good to get out, walk around, get the sun, all that sort of thing. But if you're really looking to build cardiovascular, it seems a more intense stuff might be better for you. And then as you get into better shape, then you can start teetering back into more lower intensity, quote unquote, stuff just as your vascular system gets better, right? Now, one of the most famous cyclists ever, Lance Armstrong, right? Did he train zone two? Did Lance Armstrong train zone two? I wonder because he can't really push it, right? There's no direct evidence that he specifically used zone two training. Um, Lance Armstrong trained predominantly uphill, which is interesting, near Nice, France, with a focus on raising his aerobic threshold rather than intense work. His coach, Chris Carmichael, emphasized aerobic training as key factor setting Armstrong apart from other riders. Yes, I'm sure the hill training was the factor that set Lance Armstrong apart from other riders. I joke. I joke. Everybody else was doing steroids. But this aligns with the principles of building an aerobic base, which is a component of Zone 2 training philosophy. Long, steady efforts, but I have a hard time believing he's on an uphill in Nice, France, going in Zone 2. Um, he avoided really intense work during these sessions, suggesting preference for moderate intensities, which could. So he's probably in Zone 3 or 4. I guess Zone 3, with maybe getting up into Zone 4, dipping into Zone 2. Um, in 2011, in Men's Health, to strengthen Armstrong's posterior chain, Peter Park, this man got trained by Spider-Man, what the heck? He's trying to train his glutes, hamstrings, lower back, focus on flexibility, stability rather than high intensity intervals. Wasn't as one two wasn't formalized. Interesting. So yeah, so he was doing intense stuff, just not like the most intense thing. And that would make sense because I mean he trained through cancer, didn't This guy trained Lance Armstrong cancer. Lance Armstrong cancer. Let's see what it says. Oh, no, he wasn't a camper. He was actually a Taurus. No, I'm just kidding. He was stage 3 advanced testicular cancer, embryonal carcinoma. Dang. 50 to 20% survival. I actually didn't know that. What a fighter. And he fought this in 1997. Crazy. Unbelievable. It's crazy to think like, you know, he gets a bad rap, but that man, what did he do? He noticed that there was all these other cyclists out there and they're all saucy on steroids. And he goes out and he just pummels them all and then gets cancer. Maybe because of all the steroid use. I don't know if that plays a factor potentially, but it's 1997. He's got to go through this really in 50% survival, all these sort of things. And he miraculously makes it. Now, if I'm Lance Armstrong's doctor, and I've just been told my champion, icon, American hero, cyclist, patient, friend has ball cancer. Firstly, have you tried taking all of his teeth out? Have we tried that? Have we removed all of his teeth? No? Well, let's try that because that makes the most sense to do first. But secondly, Lance, like, if you're open to it, and you must be open to it because you've tried steroids, right? Like, if you've tried steroids, what are you not going to be open to at that point? If you're open to it, I have an incredible tooth fungus that very well could save your life. And I'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you all learned something, and I cannot wait to talk to you all again soon. Okay, goodbye, everybody.